Hello and welcome to Physics Problem 1 by 1. Today is Mechanics, Kinematics. So here is a problem. As always, read it, maybe once, maybe twice, and then pause the video and try to solve it yourself. The problem about average, it seems like such a simple problem. 40 and 60, well, everyone will say that an average speed is 50. But why? Well, because if we have two numbers, n1 and n2, then of course the average would be n1 plus n2 divided into 2. And what may be more simple? 40 plus 60 divided into 2 is 50. That's how you sort maybe. And if you sort along those lines, you was completely and totally incorrect. Because, yes, the answer may be 50 in one case, but it's completely different situation here in physics. Because in physics, the average speed is defined as follows. We have the distance d and the time the body travels from point A to point B. And if we are about to draw a graph, velocity over time, velocity changes. And by the way, the area under this graph is the distance. So velocity changes, but there should be some value of V average underneath that has the same distance as if it was traveling for the same time with the same constant speed. So basically, we don't know the details of how velocity was changing during the time of travel, but all we know is the distance and time. So we're basically saying in physics, velocity average is equal distance divided over t. It's as if the body was traveling with the constant speed, and of course distance would be time multiplied V average. That's the definition of the average speed in physics. And with this definition we should work. Not with the definition of average between two numbers. Two numbers, they have an average, but it has nothing to do with this situation. That said, let's discuss the first case, when for some time t, the body travels from here to here, and the speed is v1, and then from here to here, it travels the same time, but with significant bigger speed, v2. So how to solve this problem? We know that the distance covered here is v1 multiplied by t. The distance that covered here is v2 multiplied by t. We know that the total distance is v1t plus v2t is the distance. And if we want to find the average speed, we have v average equals this distance, and we have to divide into total time from A to B. And this is t and this is t. So total time is 2t. We can factor t out, and we immediately receive that v average, after we factor it out, t will be gone, and we will have v1 plus v2 divided into 2. So for the first scenario, yes indeed, v average equal v1 plus v2 divided into 2. So basically, you may say, what I was talking about, 40 plus 60 divided into 2, but it's simply a coincidence. And this is a coincidence based on the fact that the time for the first part was exactly the same like the time for the second part. Second part, it was moving faster and covered more distance or less distance. By the way, it covered more distance. My picture is wrong. Because it was moving faster, it covered distance v2, and this is v1, and if v1 is smaller than v2, then this distance is smaller. This distance is smaller than that. Anyways, this is all good when time is the same. But the second part of the problem deals with the situation when it covers the first part and it is d divided into 2. And then exactly the same d divided into 2, half of the distance is covered on the second part. So, let's draw this picture. This is d, and this is d as well. And this is a, and this is b. And it goes v1, and this goes v2. All we can say is that first time, the time from here to here is equal d divided over v1. Likewise, t2 is equal d divided over v2. So the total time, of course it's d divided over v1 plus d divided over v2. We can common denominator, and time becomes v1, v2, and here is d multiply v2 plus d multiply v1, because here would be v1 and here would be v2 and here would be v1. So dv2 plus dv1. And of course we can say that factor t out, and we will have v1 plus v2 divided by v1, v2. And if we want to find the average speed in this case, we have to take total distance, which would be 2d, and divide it into this number. So when we divide it into d, v1 plus v2 over v1, v2. And obviously this goes up, d goes away, and we get v average equals 2. v1, v2 goes here on the top, and v1 plus v2. So v average in this case equals 2v1 v2 divided v1 plus v2. And that's very different from that. So no intuition, no comparison with average between two numbers. It's completely different situation and completely different average. Okay. Let's put the numbers here, 40 plus 60, and the number would be 50. And here 40 plus 60 is 100, 40, 60, 24, 48. The number would be 48. So the number when we average speed when the times are the same are bigger than the average number when the distance is the same. Okay, this concludes part 1 of this problem. Part 2 to follow would be a little bit of expansion. And meantime, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. This way you will not miss on my new problems that will appear shortly. I have many ideas. Thank you.